200 or visit newtv.org. Funding for NewTV is provided by Comcast and RCN cable customers and these generous local sponsors. Newton Highlands Chiropractic, where Dr. Bob Staulo has helped people find lasting relief since 1989. Edward Jones Investments and your Newton representative, Timothy Braceland. Sharon Memorial Park, where a pre-need arrangement is the loving, caring thing to do. To join these community partners in sponsoring NewTV, call 965-7200, extension 17.
Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worry on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear a pitter-pat? And that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny, sunny, sunny side of the street. Hi, welcome to another On the Sunny Side of the Street. I'm your host, Tod Gross, and I'm a clinical psychologist and director of Adams Street Associates, a group practice in Newton. And our show is one where we really try to look at maybe some of the more positive alternative side of the news, as in contrast to all the negative stories you see when you're watching the news. So today we also have another really positive story of some very positive approaches to healing. And I'm very, very glad and honored to have as our guest Abby Kessler. Hi, Abby.
Todd.
Thank you for coming. Abby is going to talk to us about several kinds of Chinese medicine: acupuncture, acupressure, and shiatsu massage. And we also have Elise, who you may be able to see on the table there, who will be our client to show a little bit later on in the show how to illustrate some of the techniques that Abby's going to be talking about. And I would like to add, by way of introduction, that Abby also has been absolutely a wonderful, wonderful therapist for myself. So I start by saying I have a lot of respect for our guest here. You bet, Abby. Maybe as by way of starting, if you could tell us just a little bit about the kinds of techniques that you use, just in general, and then we'll talk about it more specifically.
Okay. Well, Chinese medicine has a lot of different tools. I'm working my way through all of them. Like right now I'm in Chinese herbal medicine school, which is a 2.5-year program where I'm studying how to incorporate herbal medicine. But I've been doing shiatsu massage since the late 1980s.
Okay.
And acupressure and various styles of Asian body work. I've been doing acupuncture since the mid-1990s. There are many needle and non-needle ways that you can manipulate qi or energy through the body. You can use magnets. You can use heat to warm the different acupuncture points. There are different massage techniques. There's something called cupping. There's electro-stimulation to acupuncture points. So I've incorporated many of these techniques into my...
It's fairly complex.
Yes.
Maybe by way of starting, I'm thinking for the audience, most of us have heard about acupuncture, and I'm sure that you're going to tell us there's a lot more people use it than we may even realize. But today I thought maybe you could bring acupuncture a little bit to life by talking a little bit about what goes into it a little bit. So maybe let's start with that one, if that's okay.
Well, you mentioned a lot of people use acupuncture. Actually, 1/3 of the world's population uses acupuncture and Chinese medicine as their primary health care.
That's amazing statistic. I think living in the United States, we have sort of a narrow view, of that. So that's interesting for people to hear.
Right. Here it's alternative.
Yes.
But it actually can address just about any problem. Not that it cures every problem, just like Western medicine can't cure every problem.
Right.
But it can analyze, assess, and address, often very effectively, just about any health problem.
Okay. Can you say a little bit what goes into it? I mean, people probably have heard the term, but they don't know much about the science of what is behind acupuncture.
Sure. Well, first of all, a lot of people think it treats the nerves. Like you go to an acupuncturist and they manipulate your nerves. But actually, that's only a small part of it. For example, the largest concentration of acupuncture points is on the ear.
Yeah.
And there are no significant nerves or blood vessels on the external ear. The way it works, I'm just looking at my notes briefly because I don't want to leave anything important out, but it stimulates the body's signaling system, which involves the release of proteins that travel through the bloodstream, through the cells, to stimulate all the systems in the body, like the endocrine system and the immune system, the cardiovascular system, the musculo-skeletal system.
Gotcha.
And what happens is very early in an embryo's development, the acupoints form. These points that have a high concentration of these proteins that send signals out.
Yes.
And at first, it's sort of undifferentiated. They're just everywhere. And then as the fetus develops, these acupoints cluster in areas where there's going to be a growth spurt or a differentiation of an organ. For example, at a limb bud that becomes an arm or a leg. Then the acupoints send a signal for the limb to grow. And,
Interesting.
And so the structure and the physiology of the body follows that energy signal that's sent by the acupoints. Then in a fully formed human, the acupoints lay themselves out in a very symmetrical and, actually in these meridians.
You're looking at that chart there.
And you have a whole meridian network that goes through every tissue, every structure, every organ in your body and links everything together. So, in human beings and in animals, these points help to maintain and integrate all the systems of the body.
I see.
And also, any changes in this electrical field, I should say that the acupoints, they have a higher metabolic rate, they're warmer, they conduct electricity. They have a high electrical conductance. They have a higher metabolic rate than non-acupuncture point parts of the body.
Yeah.
And high-resolution microscopes that view magnetic fields and electric currents can actually map this out. Like you can actually see it.
Yeah.
So changes at the acupoints precede changes in the structure and function of the body. So when you learn to assess and treat the meridian system, you can not only treat diseases and injuries, but you can work with somebody preventatively because you catch a problem before it manifests in a more physical way.
Is it right, Abby, that if somebody came and they had a certain kind of problem in some part of their body, the actual points you might use might not necessarily be just or that part of the body that you would put the needle in?
Oh, absolutely not. For example, well, I don't even have to look at the chart, but a liver problem, for example, the liver meridian, it goes from the big toe to the inside of the leg, goes around the genitals, around the groin, the reproductive organs, goes around the stomach, up through the breasts, and it goes out up to the eye. So problems along any of the parts of the head, headaches, headaches behind the eye, any of these things could relate to a blockage along that meridian. So I could treat an eye problem by treating the toe.
Interesting. Really interesting.
Yeah.
And you have something down there, too. Is that related to...
Well, I thought because Chinese medicine is such a complex system and it's so foreign to a lot of Americans that I could maybe briefly talk about some of the main principles in Chinese medicine.
Okay.
So the main principles in Chinese medicine are, these are the vital substances in the body. We have to make sure that they're abundant and flowing freely.
And that's in case for people who can't see that, it says energy.
So there's energy, blood, vital fluids, essence, which is kind of like your inherited constitutional strength, and spirit, which interacts, you know, and relies on your body's chi. And then yin and yang have to be balanced. So I put down some of the qualities of yin and yang. Yin can be thought of more as sort of the rest and recover. The Chinese character for yin is an open mouth eating food. So it has to do with the body's ability to store and replenish and rest and recover. And conserve, you know, some of the words I used here. It's also substantial. It's like all the substances in your body that you draw on,
right?
You know, like blood. And then the yang is not substantial. The yang is sort of your life force.
Okay.
It's what moves things. It's what transforms things. It excites. It's like your body's fire, as opposed to
That's helpful
yin
to know
is
the
your
difference
body's
there.
water. And they have to be in balance. They need both, just like a car needs an engine that burns the gas, but it also needs the gas and the oil to keep the engine. So if there's a deficiency or excess of either the yin or the yang, you know, that is a problem. And then finally, pathogenic factors. So the body has to have sufficient healthy factors like energy, blood, vital fluids, essence, but you don't want the body to be retaining pathogenic factors, and the pathogenic factors are stress or emotions. Now, emotions are healthy, but in Chinese medicine, if an emotion is extremely intense, like somebody gets a fright or a shock, or if an emotion is held for a long period of time and not able to be expressed or released, then it becomes a pathogenic factor in the body. Fire toxins, now this has to do with pollutants, any poisons, bad food, environmental things that become toxic in our system. Phlegm, well, everybody knows, you know, if your nose is full of phlegm. In Chinese medicine, there's also insubstantial phlegm, which could, for example, make you feel confused or muzzy-headed. Certain kinds of lumps and cysts are phlegm if they're watery and mucousy. Damp discharges can all be, actually phlegm relates to dampness, but these are pathogens. Wind is like the common cold, for example, is a form of wind. It invades. Wind symptoms tend to move around a lot. You know, like, for example, if somebody, you know, some fibromyalgia patients have pains that they're always in pain, but, you know, one day it's worse over here and then one day it's worse over here. That kind of traveling pain is wind. And it needs to be expelled. Dryness, cold, or heat in excess. For example, if you have forced air heating, can really dry out your healthy fluids, condense them into phlegm, so then you have a problem with phlegm and dryness. Cold or heat, you know, we live in a pretty extreme climate. And also somebody's underlying predominance of yin or yang can make them more prone to a problem with excess cold or heat.
So these are all some of, if I've got you right, these are all some of the factors that you use in Chinese medicine to assess the patient that you're working with. You need to have a sense of where they are in terms of some of these things.
That's right.
Can you say a little bit about acupressure?
In acupressure, you're treating the same meridian system, you're treating the same points, and especially in my practice, because I do both, I really use the diagnostic and assessment tools of an acupuncturist to determine what my acupressure treatment will be, but it's very similar. When you're pressing on a point, and then you release the point, blood goes to the area and improves the circulation at that point.
I see, yeah.
So in terms of acupressure versus acupuncture,
Right.
you could think of acupressure more as a very nourishing vitamin for the body. Acupuncture is like a powerful medicine for the body. It's not necessarily that one is better,
Right.
but sometimes only acupuncture will do the trick. It's good when a patient is open to both, because a lot of times I'll incorporate both in the same treatment. They get
Yes.
the best of both.
Yes.
The other advantage to acupuncture is that you can stimulate several points prolonged all at the same time, which, you know, you only have two hands,
Right.
so you can't do
Right.
that. And when you treat certain points together at the same time, it's like a chord instead of an individual note.
I see.
It sends a different message to the body than an
Gotcha.
individual note.
And where does shiatsu massage fit in this too?
Shiatsu is simply the Japanese word for acupressure. It literally translates to finger pressing.
Okay.
And there are variations of shiatsu or acupressure or whatever you want to call it, not only in Japan, but in China and Korea, Vietnam. So shiatsu is just the Japanese word for it. And there's more difference between the different styles of acupressure or shiatsu that people use, you know, because people study certain schools just like you'd study with
Yeah.
a martial art teacher and you'd learn a certain form.
Right.
Than there is between the word shiatsu and the word acupressure.
I see. Now, it might be really good, just because I know you can't do justice in a short time, but even just with what you've talked about, for us to maybe have you show us a little bit how you might demonstrate on our friend over here, Elise. You still there, Elise? Mm-hmm. Good, thank you.
All
maybe
right.
we can, you can demonstrate some of the principles. And I'll also
Okay.
talk to Elise a little bit about what she's experiencing, so the audience, if they put themselves in her place, what you might feel like if you were having the treatment.
Okay. Well, to save time, I talked with
Yes.
Elise a little bit before the show.
Okay.
Since she had her baby, when women have a child, and also, you know, as everybody knows, the period after having a child can be very exhausting. You know, the going through labor
Yes.
is very depleting. Adjusting to the baby's schedule is exhausting.
Absolutely.
And so often women become deficient in qi and blood after pregnancy, and this needs to be supplemented. Now, since having the baby, Elise has been having some stomach problems and some fatigue.
Yeah.
She's taking Zantac once a day for
Stomach. Yeah.
One factor is that she eats dinner sometimes late at night because she's running around and she just gets to settle down and eat at that time. That's hard on the stomach. Her symptoms are worse with stress. And I should say that worse with stress in Chinese medicine, liver has to do with stress. Mm-hmm. When you have a digestive system that's worse with stress, that indicates or hints at a condition known as liver invading spleen. The stomach feels raw, and there's an occasional sharp pain, but eating makes her feel better unless it's really bad.
Okay.
Now, when eating makes the stomach problem feel better, that's a sign of deficiency. And direct pressure makes her stomach feel better. That's also a sign of a deficiency condition. If somebody has stomach pain and you press it and they go, ah, you know, then that's a sign of excess. There's a stagnation. There's
Yeah.
too much.
Okay.
She's not bloated or gassy, so there's not a lot of excess. Again, it's more of a deficiency condition. She doesn't have a strong taste in her mouth, which is, again, a sign of deficiency condition. If she was tasting sour or metallic or bitter taste with her stomach problem, that would be more a sign of very intense heat. And she's tired and not hungry in the morning. And every organ in Chinese medicine has a certain time of day associated with it.
Interesting, okay.
So between 7 a.m. and 11 a.m. is a time of day when the digestive organs are the most active. So people who have stomach or intestinal problems in the morning, that means often that there's not enough qi in those organs. Also, since giving birth, she's been having some night sweats. that's a sign of her body not holding on to important yin fluids. So these are the kinds of things I would discuss with her.
These are part of your assessment.
And this is the difference between Western medicine and Chinese medicine is that in Chinese medicine, you're differentiating. It's not like everybody with an acid stomach is going to get Zantac. It's like, is it deficient? Is it excess?
I see.
Is there phlegm? Is the liver involved? Is it heat or is it cold? You can have a cold stomach problem. So all of these things, also it's the chi rebelling, going up, going down, going out. You know, there's a million different things you look at.
I'd love to see you demonstrate a little bit with Elise.
So, Elise, would you mind sticking out your tongue? So, looking at Elise's tongue, it's scalloped, which shows some dampness and some spleen or middle warmer or stomach deficiency. The tip is red, so there's some anxiety or stress in her life. And open wider. Good. Other than the red tip, it's a little bit pale purple swollen. So again, a little bit of chi and blood deficiency. Now, I want to. Oh, I don't know if you want to look at this, but it's just interesting because there's so many different kinds of tongues. You know, that's a whole school of diagnosis, right?
Using the tongue as
China.
an instrument of diagnosis.
I don't know if oh yeah, okay, so, you know, I mean, analyzing tongues is a whole big part of Chinese medicine.
That's something you routinely ask about.
Right, right. So then I'd want to feel Elise's pulses.
Okay.
And her pulse is empty, meaning there's not a lot of force to it. It's kind of thin.
Yeah.
But it's also a little bit wiry, so there's some stress. So both some emotional stress, but also depletion of chi and blood. So I'm going to select some points that do different things to help address her condition. Actually, before I do that, maybe I should show you the acupressure version of how I would. So in the acupressure version, I'm going to, for example, this is the mother hand, meaning you usually keep one hand in one place stationary, and then you work down the meridian with the other hand. And the chi flows from one hand to the other. So I'm just pressing points on her stomach meridian. In an acupressure session, I would spend almost an hour just going over different points and also stretching, you know, depending on what's going on. I mean,
right.
now with Elise, if I'm simply addressing this stomach issue, I wouldn't be doing as many stretches and manipulations of the body that I would with somebody with you know, if I was addressing their back problem or neck problem, I would also do more physical therapy type exercises with them.
Yes.
There's a type of movement exercise strengthening thing that I do called Sotai, which is similar to, I don't know if anybody's heard of, if you've heard of Feldenkrais or
movement kind of
Alexander technique. This is Japan's version of that.
I see. I wonder if we have just a few minutes left. I wonder while you're doing that and maybe get to the place where you show a little bit of the acupuncture needles, if I could ask Elise a little bit, how is that feeling so far? And can you say just a little bit about how these techniques have been helpful to you?
The massage, the shiatsu acupressure feels great.
Yes.
It's almost immediate relief because you feel the chi starting to move.
Yes.
And so it feels wonderful. In the past, Abby has treated me for lots of symptoms. Anything from regulating my menstrual cycle to my pregnancy symptoms. When I was pregnant, I had terrible gastritis for like 90% of my pregnancy.
Really?
And I even lost weight at the beginning of my pregnancy.
Wow.
And with acupuncture, I was able to eat. It was amazing.
Made a difference.
Made a huge difference. Huge difference. Yeah.
How about these needles? A lot of people that are watching are saying, oh my God, you know, I wonder if you, from the point of view of the client, then what does that feel like, and how have you dealt with that for people who are watching that might be interested?
I'm actually relatively needle phobic. I never look at them.
Yes.
And actually, I would say 99% of the time, I feel almost nothing. Sometimes I feel a little bit of pressure.
Yes.
And maybe, you know, out of 100 needles, maybe there's one that feels a little uncomfortable, but Abby just adjusts it.
Yeah.
So for the most part, it's not a big deal, as long as I don't look at them, because I'm not like not a 90 needle person. But yeah, it's fine.
Now she's putting them where? In your arms and your legs?
And then I think she usually puts some in my stomach.
Some in your stomach, too.
Yeah.
For example, this point is a general chi tonic point.
Uh-huh.
This point tonifies stomach chi.
Didn't you, Abby, tell me that you actually got a sense that she was pregnant in the very beginning? I seem to remember that.
I think I was talking about another patient.
Yeah. Does that happen sometimes?
Yeah, she was an interesting case, that patient. She had ulcerative colitis when she first came to see me, and
yes,
her bowels were a mess. She was at the point where some people actually get their large intestine removed.
Wow.
And with the acupuncture, within a few weeks, all her symptoms subsided. She got much healthier. She put on weight.
Yeah.
And she and her, you know, she didn't even think she could get pregnant because she was, you know, so weak when she came in. And then one day she came in and her pulse changed, and I said, "Are you pregnant?" And she said, "No, I'm not. I'm not pregnant." I mean, she didn't, you know, she didn't believe she could be. But I said, "Well, just in case you are, I'm going to adjust the treatment, because there are certain points you want to avoid if somebody's pregnant." And then she came back the next week and said she was pregnant.
In just a very short time left, just could you say a little bit about the kinds of ailments that the acupuncture could treat for people who are watching? If they were interested, could this help me?
Well, as I mentioned before, it's a whole complete medicine in and of itself. So it can address just about everything to either, you know, help it or cure it. But in terms of what I treat the most in my practice, I think, like most American acupuncturists, most Americans have heard that acupuncture treats pain and treats addiction. And this is a lot of, because when it came to this country during the Nixon administration and detente with China, there were certain studies being done at the time about serotonin, so they included acupuncture in those studies.
I'm going to have to leave it there, but there's so many things that you have brought up, and I learned a lot from this, and I want to thank you so much for coming, Abby, and talking with us. And Elise, thank you for demonstrating the technique. And for our audience, I'd like to say thank you very much for watching, and please tune in again to another On the Sunny Side of the Street. We'll look for you. Take care, everybody.
Grab your coat and get your hat. Leave your worry on the doorstep. Just direct your feet to the sunny side of the street. Can't you hear a pitter-pat? And that happy tune is your step. Life can be so sweet on the sunny, sunny, sunny side of the street.
This is NewTV. Watch what Newton can do on Newton Community Television. New TV's free training and TV production facilities are provided for a small annual member's fee to Newton residents and organizations. To join or pledge your support, call 617-965-7200 or visit newtv.org. Funding for New TV is provided by Comcast and RCN cable customers